it.
I appreciate that. I've done this a few times before. There's no holds barred, my friend. So
Really? Have you ever done like something unscripted? Because I didn't prepare for this.
yes, you will be just fine. So tell me, what are you drinking tonight?
Grapefruit beer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Is that what brand is that? I don't recognize it.
Shelfer Helfer.
Is it local or is it German?
I think it's German. Yeah, Hefeweizen.
A
Beer.
Hefeweizen.
Yeah, grapefruit.
So a Hefeweizen means that it's made with wheat. And it's got that nice kind of aromatic citrusy, right?
Yeah.
Is it good?
I love it. I guess my vice, I love sweet like drinks. So, no, I had like a whiskey tasting earlier for something I do for work. And like I had a coworker who mentioned, where can I get refills? And it was this like Texas distillery. It's called Ranger Creek Distillery. I think they're based off of San Antonio, and they just make like different types of whiskeys. I could barely drink a teaspoon of each one. And he's like, can I get a refill? I was like, this is way too strong. Like, this isn't pleasing to me.
This is like bringing together an amalgam of all things Lauren is an expert in, because I paid for grad school by being a bartender.
That's awesome.
I have enough knowledge to be dangerous,
when did you start bartending?
Okay, this was a very long time ago, my friend. I'm going to show my age. This was when 6th Street was still a thing.
So you were from Austin?
So I'm from Houston originally.
Okay.
Not originally. I was actually born in Saudi Arabia because I'm an oil and gas brat, but have been in Houston ever since. And I went to the University of Texas at Austin. And so did undergrad and grad school at UT. I was in the School of Social Work and then the LBJ School of Public Policy. And this is in the heyday. So we won the state championship while I was at UT. So during grad school, it was actually during undergrad that I started, but I worked at the library and I worked at Maggie Mae's and I worked at Paradise. And you could never do this anymore, but I remember helping to throw foam parties at the clubs. So I had the benefit of working at some of the, I will say, best bars on 6th Street. Probably I can never get COVID because I did. So it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about people and working with people. And I learned a lot about whiskey because I was a whiskey girl. I learned a lot about craft beer, which was interesting. But I tell you, if you have ever trained to be a bartender, you will never be without a job.
Really?
It's interesting in the pandemic because now that's, transitioned and people can't go to bars. But I say that because the skills that you learn as a server or as a bartender, the skills that you learn in the service industry will carry you forward no matter what you do, right? Essentially now, as a professional fundraiser, I'm using the same skills. I'm talking to people, I'm building relationships. Now I just happen to do it with a venture capital company.
I think the most famous bartender I know, you probably already know who I'm going to say, Mark Cuban, right?
Exactly. Mark Cuban is one of my heroes. He's a fellow libertarian. He's a serial entrepreneur. He speaks his mind, stands up for small businesses, and he got to start bartending.
Speaking of bartending, what are you drinking? Did you even bring a drink? Because I know you just got off of class.
I'm hydrating.
Something.
I'm hydrating. I actually do not drink. So in terms of being a bartender, I have all of the knowledge. I don't imbibe the product.
Well, that's good. I mean, we could have done it on Tuesday too, and we can drink tea or something.
We could have done tea on Tuesdays.
We could have done that. Yeah.
Yes, that should be a new thing. Tea on Tuesdays, and we'll do tastings and we'll compare teas.
Yeah, and I had one of my mentor. Every single time you talk to him, he's like always selling whatever he's just drinking with him right now. He's been selling me on the Essentia pH 9.5 water.
Good one.
Is it, or is it just a fad?
I'm a fan. But, YJ, I love that you mentioned tea on Tuesdays and, the opportunities with Drunk Startups, because you and I were connected through a bunch of like different pathways that just all kind of came together. And this was just, the perfect chance for us to talk about that.
Yeah.
You were a student at the University of Houston Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship, where I'm a mentor.
And the teacher?
And a teacher, correct.
What do you teach?
So entrepreneurship broadly, and I teach
Yeah.
at Rice University, and I've done some courses at the University of Texas in their Moody School as well. But what I'm talking about with Dave is pretty cool, is teaching servant leadership, which is different. So
Yeah.
I think
How would you teach that?
It's a lot about mindset. So tell me, while you were in the Wolf program, what were some of the things they taught you about leadership? And I'll tell you what I would do a little bit different.
Man, it's been a while back, but I do remember them just making a string from a fire hose. So it's like, well, hey, now you're gonna be in this competition with four other very ambitious people, and now whoever wins, gets the huge recognition, and you want to win because you're surrounded by some of the most like driven folks possible, and you want to look good out of all these 40 people.
That, I think, is a great example of them encouraging you to work with your peers and peer-to-peer mentorship. I'll say, you and I had this conversation before. Part of knowing yourself and knowing yourself really well is where servant leadership starts. So we both took the Berkman assessment, right? And then you were telling me about the builder assessment.
Yeah.
So tell me, what did you learn about yourself in the Berkman assessment? And I'll tell you what I learned about myself.
Oh, I can pull it up if I can. But so my interest was, it's interesting. So I was talking with the consultant, right? Because one thing that they do after they give you the assessment, they had every student have the chance to sit for 2 hours or so, or an hour or so with someone who's a consultant. And the one who was doing it for me, she was mentioning, this is really interesting, YJ, because your interests are red. One of them is the engineering one, and a scientific one, which used to be half blue, half red. And then my usual and my normal stress behavior, they're all really close to the middle. And then when I looked at what I was really interested in, and she would mention to me, well, if you're above like a 65 or 70, it shows that you have high interest in this area. And I had at least one in every single color and spectrum. And so I took this. This is at a stage in which I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was a senior. I thought I figured it out by now. I was like, look, as a senior in middle school, I was like, what do I want to do? Once like in high school, I still don't know what I want to do. It's like maybe in college, now I'm forced to pick a major. And I was like, crap, I wanted to everything. And one of the things that I want to do was one, learn more about people. So I was interested in psych. And then I had friends who I'm still friends with on Facebook who peer pressured me on like, hey, why did it's a liberal arts degree? Good luck. And so I just transitioned to business, and I remember talking to my counselor, like, I want to learn everything. It was hard, and I had enough credits to do so, but they wouldn't let me triple major. So I found what's that?
I was going to say, these are those, first world academic problems that I can't major in everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I had the privilege to go to university. I had, like you, had to fund it myself, or I worked through college. And I didn't care much about academics, but I did appreciate like what we did in entrepreneurship because it was very practical.
Yes.
And so taking this Berkman test was great because one, I'm studying something that's very broad in a way. And they're doing this assessment, and this assessment is telling me that you enjoy the analytical piece, you enjoy building, you enjoy engineering, you enjoy science, you enjoy creativity and talking to people. I was like, well, fuck, what should I do?
What do I do with that,
And I was
right?
crying to Dave, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Like, if you tell me, hey, YJ, here's a venture firm, it's like, cool, let's do due diligence. That's fun.
Yep.
Supply chain logistics. Let me go ahead and work on warehousing and figure out how I can make this better. Accounting company. It was like, yeah, I love to learn the language of business.
And that's what being an entrepreneur is all about, right? We talked about being generalists and having a broad approach to building teams. But I'll say that's bringing it together for me.
Which actually, you know, that I wish they would teach us about, because I think a lot of students get so pressured. Definitely myself. It's like, hey, you have to focus.
Well, and I think it's, and I think you and I talked about this before. It's trying on a couple of different roles. You become a generalist as a result of trying to be a specialist in lots of different areas. And especially when you're first starting off in your career, picking something and saying, I'm going to figure out if this is a good fit, and I'm going to try to be a specialist and grow my knowledge. But guess what? If it's not a good fit, move on. Try something else. And
did that happen to you? Because so you study social work.
Yep. And
was that something as a kid, I want to be a social worker?
I always knew that I wanted to help people. And so,
was there a certain part of people that you wanted to help specifically, or?
And that actually comes to servant leadership and what I want to teach at the Wolf Center. That I was raised in a military family. So remember, I'm at Bunker Labs too. You're getting all of the Bunker Labs crew. But one thing that was very much ingrained in me at an early age was being of service to others. And I found that what motivates me, and it's a two-sided coin. I feel good about myself when I'm being of service to others.
Yeah.
In addition to seeing the result. So being, I won't say a people pleaser because it's beyond that, but being part of a family that taught me to be of service to others, to be of service to my country, to be of service to my neighbors, to be of service to my friends and my community, that was ingrained early on. And so, one of the first questions that I asked myself was, how can I be of service to others? And studying social work, for me, I knew I was never going to be a counselor. I am not, don't ask me to be a counselor. That's very micro level. I'm not very good at it. I'm a great listener and I'm a great conversationalist, but I was always much more macro level. I was interested in the systems. And I think Brene Brown has, popularized social work. All of a sudden it's on people's radar now. Oh, you're a social worker. But social work is essentially the study of systems and how systems interact and how they either can institutionalize injustice or break down barriers. And I'm very passionate and very interested in breaking down barriers. And I think for me, that really came to a head when I started learning about all the barriers to creating and sustaining small businesses. I saw that early on, not just bartending or working in restaurants, although those are very definitely small businesses that struggle due to regulations, heavy regulations. But seeing others, and I'm from Houston, YJ, you know this, we are a community of immigrants. We are a community of entrepreneurs. And having that ethos be so much a part of, my community here in Houston and in Texas in general, I started saying, how can I help entrepreneurs? How can I help small business owners? Because I believe that helping people start and grow businesses is the way we lift people out of poverty, is the way that we break down barriers to generational success. And so taking what I love to do in social work and translating that to helping and supporting entrepreneurs, for me, wasn't a big leap. It was, I can help people end hunger and house the homeless and take care of children and serve animals, or I can help people grow and sustain businesses so they can take care of themselves. That seemed like a no-brainer. It seemed like the bigger fit for a lot of other social problems.
Was there a particular business that you enjoyed working, or a certain obstacle that you feel more passionate about doing, or was it just more of, I just want to make sure that whatever people want to do, holistically approach it?
I appreciate that. And I'll say it's twofold. It's broad because I do want to support entrepreneurs in whatever their journey looks like. But I'll say there's a couple of things in which I'm particularly interested because I got into fundraising. This was my way of being a social worker, helping people get the resources that they need. And, now I work in venture capital, I've worked in private equity. But because of that, I got involved in Fintech pretty early on. And so I worked with a number of Fintech companies, again, helping to break down barriers for people to get and keep their money. No brainer, right?
Which is a highly regulated.
Highly regulated, yes.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm very passionate about, which is also highly regulated, is access to benefits and insurance for independents. So you and I talked about this. I think the biggest barrier to entrepreneurship is the lack of a safety net. So YJ, if you didn't have to worry about a salary and didn't have to worry about health insurance, what would you be doing?
I'll be a librarian.
Ooh, I like that.
Honestly, live in the library. All my books are tax deductible. I recommend people books all the time. That'll be great. Maybe I'll have a cafe next door too, so all my coffee's tax deductible. So.
You're still an entrepreneur. You're going to make that library and your cafe, work for each other, right? That's your lead gen.
Yeah, if I didn't need to worry about getting paid, I think honestly, I just spend my whole day learning.
To that point as well, what keeps people in their corporate jobs for many is access to benefits.
Yeah.
It's scary out there, especially in the American health insurance and, insurance landscape. It's scary, it's overregulated, it is not accessible, and it creates artificial barriers for people to lead the best lives possible. And that is something I am very passionate about. I had my own tech startup that I hope to get back to someday when COVID wraps. But, this is part of a common thread in most of the conversations I had with entrepreneurs about what's holding you back. And it was access to funding. Hello, I'm a fundraiser. So we always talk about that. And access to benefits, because especially if you're taking care of kids, especially if you've got a family that's counting on you, how do you take that risk? How do you take that leap?
Yeah, it's really interesting because the kids part as well. Like I was talking to one of my mentors earlier today about what I may want to do next, and for me, I was like, I actually realized my competitive advantage, so I don't have kids, so I don't have to worry about that.
That's a competitive advantage for sure.
It's like I have my weekends to myself, and then all these Zoom problems or these kids running around because it's President's Day. It's like, nope.
I'm single. I don't have to worry about a husband dragging me down. I don't have kids, which means I can be the best godmother and aunt that I can be, and I am.
Yeah, you get all the benefits of getting their love without taking care of them.
Yes. But YJ, we were talking also about even my work with Media Tech Ventures and our collective incubator. And, I love that coming out of Wolf, you found another way to help and be of service to entrepreneurs. What you do at Dell is being of service to entrepreneurs, right?
Right, wherever I work.
Wherever you work.
Wherever I work. But I also got lucky too. And I think part of it was, being vocal, and something I've been more conscious of. And going back to what you said earlier too, which was kind of reducing the barriers for people.
Yes.
It's interesting too, because what I love about my friends is at a certain point, and there was this book I read recently called The Alchemist.
Oh, I love The Alchemist.
Really?
Yeah. The Alchemist and the Four Agreements.
Okay, I hadn't read that one.
I'll get it to you. Yeah.
I had a startup I was mentoring who recommended who started business, and she was inspired by this book, and I remember people reading about this when I was a kid because they were forced to.
Yeah,
And when I finally read it last week, I was like, this couldn't have been a better time to read it because I don't think I would have understood it, as like a 12-year-old.
yeah, very, very different take on it.
Yeah.
I'll say, The Grapes of Wrath is one of those like John Steinbeck books that you
Mm.
have to read a million years ago. That is one of my favorites, and it has a different context every time I reread it. But The Four Agreements, The Alchemist, Simon Sinek, anything by Simon Sinek, Peter Drucker, Clay Christensen, Brene Brown. I can go back and reread those books and take away different lessons and learnings every time I read them. Something different.
Because like you experience something and then you're rereading and it's like, oh, that's what that,
Oh
was
yeah.
related to.
Well, in different phases of your life,
Yeah.
right? YJ, I loved your mind map that we were looking at the other day, and like taking the birth of an idea and seeing it through to the next stage and the next stage. And for so many of us who are entrepreneurs and serial entrepreneurs, we fell into a lot of what we do. And it was this idea grew into the next idea, grew into the next idea. And it's different stages of your life and growth and development as an individual, just as much as it is your companies.
Yeah.
So when you think about, what you love about helping and supporting other entrepreneurs, what is it that you love about it?
Lauren, this is about you. Like, stop asking me
I would be
questions.
a terrible social worker if I didn't.
No one's supposed to care about me. I purposely don't do an introduction about who I am. It's like,
Well, it's
because the guests on, you have more experience than I do. Just,
Yeah, I got that.
I didn't say that, but no, in general, and it's interesting because I'm just a nerd. All I did is like sit at home and read books and and try to do well with tests. And like for me, what's inspiring and what I love to learn about other people is because like for me to live vicariously through someone who is so passionate about doing something like this. And what you mentioned about like taking away the obstacles, I think that's a great mission because when I think like you, whenever you see someone, you see that, wow, this person, there's something about them that makes them who they are. There's something that they could do if they just had the right opportunities.
Exactly. I think part of, why I was attracted to work with Media Tech Ventures and help them grow their educational programming and their community development programming was that they saw this as a need for the creative economy, for creative entrepreneurs. And, there are plenty of programs serving, tech entrepreneurs and fintech and insurtech and all of those things. There was no organization that I saw, still to this day, that is focusing on the creative economy. And that's inclusive of artists and visionaries and musicians and publishers. Some of the companies that I have coming through our collective incubator, YJ, I mean, you're going to nerd out. I have 2 in publishing, which is phenomenal because that's an industry that desperately needs innovation and disruption. How do we get books into the hands of more readers? How do we encourage sustain more readers?
Yeah.
I love Jess and Literati out of Austin. She's showing that there's a path to success in publishing, and that bringing together media and technology is how you scale. So we've got, companies in publishing. I have one that's, issuing NFTs and, getting into crypto, which everyone wants to talk about now. And so I'm having lots of interesting conversations. But one of the startups.
Are you going back to fintech then?
Only if they're including media. Only if they're including media. Because I know the writing's on the wall, YJ.
How would fintech include media?
So good question. When I say media, I am not referring to the press. I am not referring to journalism. I am not referring to media outlets. Media is how we communicate with our senses. So assets, photos, video, audio, that's media. We just have tended to lump that description into referring to media outlets. You see what I mean? So media technology is any piece of technology that incorporates photos, video, and audio. And oh, wait a minute, isn't that every piece of technology now? That's ed tech. That can be fintech. That can be, anything really, because the way we are communicating with our audiences has to include video, has to include audio, has to include photos. So if you are not using media in your technology, you ain't doing it right.
Interesting.
But again, one of the reasons I got excited about Collective, it was addressing this typically underserved class of entrepreneurs. So helping to make publishing more accessible for writers, helping artists get there. You can't go to galleries anymore. So this one fabulous entrepreneur, Megan Pastor, she said, I want to build a tech platform to bring the gallery experience to consumers and help promote female artists. And I said, girl, let's do it. There are so many amazing companies coming up. Pro Indie Music out of Mexico City is one of our newest cohort participants, and he's helping to make the indie music experience easier because it's so hard. How do you get your music in front of people? How do you attract an audience? All of those things. So really.
Do you have a favorite? Or you're not allowed to tell?
But I could say that I have favorites in so many different categories. I get excited about so many.
Or is it one of those in which I'm like, oh, they're all my favorites because they're all my children type of thing?
They're kind of all my children. You're right. They're definitely all
it's like
my
they're
children.
listening in. It's like she better say my company.
I'll say my favorite companies are the one where I see the excitement and the passion in the founder, and I see that they're willing to put in the hard work to make it happen. And that includes being open to feedback. Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges that I've seen, and I know you have as well, is that founders sometimes get so protective of their idea. It's their precious. It is their precious. They don't want anyone to steal their precious. You have to sign an NDA to talk to them. And, they're so worried about competitors. And guess what, man? If someone else can do your idea better than you can, then it's not your problem. It's all about execution. So the entrepreneurs that are excited about their ideas, passionate about execution, and aren't so protective that they're willing to listen to some hard truths and take feedback, those are the people I want to work with. Because, man, we can do some amazing things together if you're willing to take feedback.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I was reading this book called Blitzscaling where it talks about a few VCs in Europe that literally all they do is just throw money on startups that are happening in the US and just build their own regional version of it.
And that's a method of growth and acquisition. Absolutely. Yeah. They find good ideas and they see if they can execute even better or execute differently.
Just by throwing money in it. So to your point, it's like to be ahead of curve is execute. Going back to something that you said though about your favorite startups, do you have favorite students? No. I mean, there's only 40 of them.
Again, it's
okay. Look, Dave even told us like, hey, you know, for the director of Wolf Center, he's like, I remember one of the first classes, he was like, you telling the whole class, guys, I have favorites. It's your job to be my favorite.
I will say that I've had some amazing mentees. The one that I had last year.
Who's your favorite student, Lauren?
I don't have a favorite student right now.
Why? Whatever.
Tell you something I really
can ping me later. It's like,
Amanda Moya from your class, I absolutely love.
She's not a student. She's not a student.
Katie DeBakey was my most recent mentee. And
okay.
She was phenomenal.
What type of students then?
What type of students?
Yeah, there you go.
Open to feedback.
Yeah.
Willing to take hard truths. And the students that find gratitude in everything. Because I think this is true of just people in general. Like if you, and this is a little bit towards my social justice, background as a social worker, but if you cannot recognize and acknowledge your own privilege and find gratitude for what you have, we probably won't get along.
Hmm.
And I will say that's a little bit tricky in the startup and especially in the venture capital world, because, so many entrepreneurs, think they hit a home run when they started off on third base. And that's not to say that they don't have wonderful products and wonderful services and innovative technology and disruptive ideas. They are some incredible entrepreneurs. But if they started off, 8 miles down the road and you're way back here at first base, it's hard to compare the two paths.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm passionate about fundraising and passionate about breaking down barriers. I know that as a woman, I have certain barriers and biases that I'm going to combat. But I also know that as a white woman who had the benefit of phenomenal education, I have certain privileges as well. And so I think it's a matter of understanding my barriers, understanding others' barriers, and finding empathy and being able to meet people where they're at. And again, that goes back to being a social worker. I might not be a traditional social worker, but I use those skills every day. Every day.
On the topic of privilege, because I think one, diversity is a really interesting topic, because from a business aspect, there's a lot of value to hiring a
Absolutely.
diverse team. Like
Absolutely.
beyond just like, hey, yes, it's important to empower disadvantaged people, but there's something interesting that I encountered recently when I was mentoring this female founder, where she was hesitant about applying to these initiatives
Mhm.
driven by the various startup communities to support women. And the reason why was because she didn't want to eventually make it big and one day say, oh, it's because I got a leg up from this thing.
I hear that. I hear that and I see both sides. On one hand, I don't want to be a token. I don't want to be, the one girl at your table that you invited just because I'm a girl. I want to be judged on the quality of my character, the value of my ideas and my skills and my experience. But also, if I'm being offered an opportunity, guess what? My male counterpart isn't going to say no. So if you're being offered an opportunity, take it. And then
Yeah.
you have the opportunity to grow through that experience, to lift yourself up to the next level, and then offer a hand up to the woman behind you. So if you are offered an opportunity, I hear that, man. I don't want to be the token female, but I will take it and I will rock it. And I will prove that it was a result of my skills and expertise. And what am I going to do? I'm going to turn around and help out the next woman.
Yeah. That's probably a much better response than what I said.
What did you say?
Well, part of it was like, as your friend, I would be frustrated if there was an opportunity that was available for you and you didn't take it.
That's valid.
And then I said, is this an ego thing? Like,
Well, and I'll say those are the important questions
Yeah.
that you ask as a friend. Like being able to ask the hard questions of your friends, being able to ask the hard questions of the people that you care about. And there, like you asked the right question, I think it was check your motivation. What is your motivation? Or, and again, let's use those social work skills. What are the fears behind your hesitation?
Yeah.
And for so many of us, that's peeling a layered onion of understanding that your ego is the top layer of an absolute like ice cap of fear. Our ego is what we put out to the public to hide the fact that we're scared you won't like us, that we're scared that you won't find us worthy. Our ego, and for so many people, it's an abrasive ego or, an offensive ego. That ego is masking so much fear that breaking it down and having friends that ask a tough question is where we have to start.
But I'd imagine this happens a lot with people from disadvantaged, backgrounds, where they've finally become successful, and now they're getting people who are telling them, well, you only did it because there was this thing that gave you a leg up.
Fuck, and I don't mean the people who have benefited from the success. It's fuck the naysayers. Like, man, if you made it, you made it. You don't need to listen to them. Now I say that, not having been in that position. I'm not Mark Cuban.
Not yet.
And nor am I Arlen Hamilton, who's one of my favorite female VCs, because she's really targeting, again, that creator class that I love,
Yeah.
the creative class. And with Backstage Capital, she's really created a niche and a space to serve that industry that I'm passionate about. There are some other, amazing funds and VCs that are serving women. My friend Carrie Colbert with Curate Capital here in Houston, she said, I want to help other women. I want to help women entrepreneurs, because she was a successful entrepreneur herself. And I think that's the question when we think about, rising tides that lift all boats, and how we can truly be of service. The best way sometimes you can be of service is to be a fucking success and to help out the next group. And that's not to say, that you shouldn't help people along the way, and pay attention to the small people, and not be an asshole. But sometimes the best thing we can do for ourselves, for our families, is to embrace those opportunities and be as successful as we can be, because that empowers us to be able to help others. And I say that my dad, I will say, I may have privilege now. I did not come from a family of privilege. My dad worked as a janitor in his high school in a family of 6 kids. They were so dirt poor, he didn't know what crayons were. So I know from his experience what struggle looks like, and he instilled those values in us. But I'll also say that is why it was important to him to have job security. When he secured a great job at ExxonMobil, because he was brilliant and earned a scholarship to the University of Detroit as an engineer, the first thing he sought was security, because he had never had it. So when we think of first generation immigrants here in Houston, and kind of navigating, how do you talk about being an entrepreneur, and how do you talk about taking risk, understanding, the generation or the background that people may have come from, sometimes security is so important to them that they can't ignore the risk, and that's okay. But it was
Would you
hard
say
to talk
that's
about.
like there's a disproportionate amount of entrepreneurs from disadvantaged locations because of it then?
That's an interesting question. I think what I love about Houston being a global community, and having people from all different backgrounds and walks of life, and I split my time with Austin, so I'm in Austin often as well. In Austin being very diverse, is that those different cultural perspectives inform how we view hard work and hustle. And for many communities, starting your own business is what you do, because in those communities there were no big corporations that you went and worked for.
Yeah.
There were no, shining white towers of academia that you ended up going to. What you did was you picked up a paper route, or you grew a cornfield in your backyard. I don't know, whatever it was. But for most entrepreneurs in the global sense, that's the way of the world, creating and sustaining your own business, because there were no corporations to go work for. So, how we think about success and different cultural perspectives, and how privilege plays into that, there are so many different layers and so many different systems. And again, like, social work, that I think it's this perfect storm for so many entrepreneurs, that their family influenced them, their culture influenced them, their access to resources influenced them. But the ones that we see make it are the ones that say, it's not about my ego. It's not about saying no to this opportunity. It's about saying yes to opportunities.
Yeah.
It's about saying yes to, being offered a chance to move forward. And it's about fighting for those opportunities. I'm getting all heated. So
It's okay.
now I'll say, Paul and I were talking about doing a happy hour in Austin next week because it's been hard for us. And, I know you feel this way to some extent too, that we haven't been able to connect with people in person. And part of navigating opportunities and finding opportunities, it used to be networking. It used to be meeting people. It used to be those random off conversations that you would have with the person in, the coffee checkout line. So navigating and finding opportunities nowadays is a lot harder. And I don't necessarily have an answer, but I know that for the people that we interact with in the Austin Startups group, right? Because we're both admins in that group, the people that I interact with in our media tech community, we have a great group. Anyone who's not a member, join our media tech group because your company is a media tech company. I will tell you now. But, finding ways to build community and relationships virtually is something that I'm really learning more about and learning how to navigate. I think it's bringing that social work element and, the hustle fundraiser in me, but saying, how do we do this in such a way that it's not transactional, it's relational?
Yeah.
It's not just sending one or two messages or liking a post or, sending a GIF and I'm a meme queen. So sending memes, but how do you take that to the next level? And, YJ, you inviting me to be on the podcast, you and I get FaceTime, even if it's screen time.
Well, because I think for me personally, I rarely leave the house. Like, there's just so much things I could do here. So, like, I've only been to like maybe 6th Street like once
Don't
or
go.
twice. Like, even I think I don't know, even when I was in Houston, like all I knew was the university. I rarely went downtown. But I know at work, it was whenever we're trying to figure out how to partner up with people and we're doing all these different, virtual engagements.
Yep.
It's always a struggle because, how can you make something engaging that
Yeah.
they've had an experience before?
Yeah. Well, so Tom,
So,
you say
and
that
part of it was drinking. I think a lot of engagements that we've done is, at work is, hey, let's do a whiskey tasting or let's. So I'm picking up this habit because I don't drink before.
well,
just so I can meet people.
I will say is your social
It's
worker,
unhealthy.
mother hen here that and I actually, this is a great opportunity. I will be absolutely honest with
Yeah.
this. I'm in recovery and I've been in recovery for years. I am sober and I had to make that choice early on. I come from an Irish Catholic family. Like being alcoholic is not that unheard of. But I will say it was not until I recognized that I was not living up to my potential.
Yeah.
And for me, I wanted to desperately be of service to others. And when I started to recognize that my drinking and my drugging, full transparency, those behaviors were preventing me from being the best I could be and being of service to others the way I wanted to, I had to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I'll say, I am scared. I am terrified that one of the big kind of side impacts of this pandemic is that people have increased their alcohol consumption. People have increased their drug consumption because they're lonely, because they feel isolated. And when we consume, mind altering substances, it seems like a way to take us out of that experience. And so I am concerned about our entrepreneurs. I am concerned about our community. And I will say to anyone watching, if you are worried about your drinking and your drugging, I am here for you. Like, you want to trade war stories? I will trade war stories.
It's contrary to the name, but you're right. I think that is important. Going to this feeling of isolation and what we could potentially do about it. What I feel like started working for some of the virtual engagements that I've been doing with, like that I'm doing with you now and other people, it's just having fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like, as you said, there's no script.
Yeah.
This is YJ and Lauren, like shooting the shit. And whether you have a beverage in your hand or not, the point is that there's no agenda. There's no ulterior motive. You know, we're not on here promoting our products and our services, although I did mention media tech.
Yeah, like a million times. I'm kidding.
But, you
It's
know,
okay. You gotta have a plug somewhere.
you gotta bring people together. But that was a way, you know, YJ, for you and I to connect, because we connected because we were talking about those opportunities, and then we wanted to get to
Yeah.
know each other better. So you're going to find like reasons to connect with other people in our Austin startup groups, in the Texas startup groups, or the Houston startup groups, and I'm in all of them.
What do you recommend for the, I guess first, what are the types of people that you enjoy helping, or that you see seeking for help, that you enjoy helping, and what are those resources that they can look at? And of course, I'm going to put your contact information. But
Yes, please. You know, when people are seeking help, I'll say I just, oh, do you guys want to see Stevie Nicks? This is my
oh,
rescue kitten, Stevie Nicks, because she's very vocal. And she's been very upset because I've been teaching back-to-back classes tonight.
oh really?
And I haven't paid attention to her.
You should
Yes,
just have the cat teach your class for you and just
well,
be
I
like,
tried. She's just not that damn helpful. I'll say most of the time when entrepreneurs reach out to me, it's usually either to connect them with some kind of resource or to help with fundraising. And I will say the best resource that I have found in terms of connecting with other people and combating isolation and loneliness is looking for people who have what you want. And I'll say what I mean by that. So no one taught me how to find mentors. You know, when I was younger at Wolf, we match you up with mentors. You know, that's part of the process. But no one taught me how to be a fundraiser. No one taught me how to be, you know, good at what I do. I had to figure it the fuck out for myself. And I wish desperately that there had been strong women that I could go to and say, hey, can I pick your brain? Like, how did you get where you are? How did you, you know, overcome these barriers? How did you
because you'd
do what
be
you
so
do?
much farther along if someone
Yeah.
came up to you.
So finding people that have what I want, and I'll say that's
Yeah.
also changed a lot over the years. If you had asked me, you know, 15, 20 years ago, I would have said, oh, I want to look up to a woman who's married and has kids and, you know, is a successful university professor. That's changed a lot.
Yeah.
I can say I'm a university professor now, but you know, seeing people who have what you want, who've done what you want to do, and reaching out to them and saying, can I pick your brain? Can I learn from you? People love to share about their experiences because it helps us to be of service. And we want to feel like we're being of service to others. That's the way we build community and connect. So if you need help, it's not necessarily, oh, I need help. It's tell me about yourself. Tell me about how you overcame these barriers. I'm a student, or I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm considering becoming an entrepreneur, but it's really scary. You know, take that commonality and reach out to someone who has what you want and connect with them on Facebook or LinkedIn or Clubhouse. I just got on Clubhouse. That's a totally different conversation, but
Did you buy an iPhone or did you have one already?
I had an iPhone. I had an iPhone,
Okay.
which was hard because my brother worked at Samsung in Austin, and I was so loyal for so long.
Oh, they may have like really cool employee discounts.
They did, they did. But I finally broke down and was like, all right, I'm just gonna get a damn iPhone. But you know,
It's okay.
Clubhouse notwithstanding, and I'll say like that speaks to
Yeah.
privilege as well, right? Like you can't hop on Clubhouse if you don't have an iPhone. Well, that negates half the population, assholes. But
Well, it's their business model.
their business model.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully they'll roll out others. But you know, your point about me connecting with other people and how
Yeah.
can we connect with each other, it's finding people who want what you have and being willing to like say, hey, teach me.
So one of the things I always end a note is always asking the question, why should people reach out to you?
you should reach out to me if you are a female founder trying to raise money. You should reach out. Well, if you're fundraising in general, I'm certainly happy to talk, but I have probably some
More
of the most,
passion if you're a woman.
more passion, but also more
More
resources.
willing to help you. Have more time if you're a lady.
But I've developed relationships with funders who support females, and you know, for me, that's important. If you are founders and entrepreneurs that are overcoming specific barriers, either due to culture or, you know, your background, like I've worked in your space, I understand what that looks like. And certainly if you work in media and technology, education, and I'm passionate about the arts and publishing and all of those things. But more than anything, man, if you just want a friend and you want to chat, you know, with.
Oh, you have to be careful because you might just get like 100 invites and then people's just sliding in. Hey, Lauren, you said.
Yeah, let's keep it clean. But yeah, I don't need like a bunch of inappropriate photos in my DMs, y'all. So I am single, but please don't send me those.
Yeah, this isn't the point of this. Yeah.
Yes. Reach out to me if you're a female founder and you're trying to fundraise. Reach out to me if you're a founder who's looking to overcome cultural barriers. Reach out to me if you're working in media and technology, and reach out to me or YJ if you're a member of the Austin Startups Group, the Houston Startups Group, the Texas Startups Group, because we want to know your stories.
Okay. And what type of people would you like to connect with?
Definitely investors, just because, you know, comparing investment theses and talking about what they are looking to fund, I think is important, because there's such a mismatch for entrepreneurs that just blast out to every investor out there. And I'm like, good God, if they aren't funding what you're selling, forget it. So if you're an investor, I'd love to learn about your investment thesis. I'd love to learn about your portfolio and your goals, so I can, you know, appropriately send you deal flow. Let me help you make some money. If you're a VC, if you're in private equity, if you're an angel, and if you want to learn about those things, if you're considering impact investing, that's a space I work in closely. And if you're an investor, let's talk. I would love to send you deal flow. I would love to make sure that you're connecting with the entrepreneurs that you want to serve, especially if they happen to be women, especially if they happen to be in underserved, you know, communities. Let's make it happen.
And before I end, there's actually one question I'm really curious about, because of your experience and because of what you do for media tech and your work in politics and supporting students.
Yeah.
Is if there's something that you wish you knew as a kid, what would it have been?
Don't trust the government? No, I won't say that.
Okay. So guys, there's a book, The Anarchist, I think. Is that it?
I'm not an anarchist. I'm a minarchist. I'm a libertarian. But no, honestly, what I would go back and tell myself as a young woman is don't take it too seriously, because you can always change your mind. And I think that goes to people who think, I don't know what I want to do with my life, or I don't know if this startup is the right fit. Try it. You can always change your mind. You can always move on to the next thing. Just understand that what you learn along the journey, it's what's going to bring you value, and find gratitude for it.
Nothing goes to waste.
Nothing goes to waste. Every opportunity is a lesson, and it makes you, you know, all the more better and all the more experienced.
Thanks, Lauren. I really wish I had that advice as a kid as well, because my advice as a kid is, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know.
And my advice is try it. Try anything.
Yeah.
Try it. Well,
like you have to focus. Like, well, I don't want to. Lauren, thank you so much for your time. We'll definitely stay in touch, and I'll keep you updated. And I'm really excited for all the things. I've been hearing a lot of great things that you're doing in WC. I wish I could attend these classes. Dave, please, if you can make it public. I mean, it's online. Like, anyone can just jump in, right? Can I just audit, or I can rename myself and put a cat filter.
You get invited to my class for sure.
Thanks, Lauren. You have a great night, and I'll talk to you later.
Night, YJ.